Welcome to this week's episode of the Running Shorts podcast.
Woohoo!
With a half marathon this weekend. It's come around ridiculously fast.
Sheffield.
Yeah, Sheffield half this weekend. We're going to chat through a couple of tips.
I think there's one in London as well.
It's a big one. It's a longer one.
There's a half
They call it the double half.
Do they? Is that marathon?
Yeah. No, a double half. The half came first.
That sounds like a pint of beer. I'll have half pint double, please.
It'd be nice. I don't know why I said that'd be nice.
No, I don't know why you did that. I think isn't there the landmark half marathon in London?
London landmarks. Yeah.
I know what I meant.
I know what you meant.
It sounds a great way to have a sightseeing tour.
Yeah, but do you want to look at things when you're running? No. But yeah, we thought we'd take you through a few tips, kind of starting all the way back at tapering and then running through to finishing the race. So we'll look at the whole thing and then hopefully you can glean something useful or that you can take forward. And then if we've missed any, just let us know what you'd add.
I think that sounds like a mighty fine idea. Because there's actually, for me as a coach, I get people asking so many questions all the time about approaching races, etc. And what frustrates me is people hear us something or see something on Instagram or a blog or something like this, and they kind of then go, I've got to do this. The thing about tapering is a bit like a lot of what we do. You've got to, if you like, take the backbone of it and then you've got to personalise it and make it work for you, because we're all slightly different. Because I heard Harry likes a big fish dinner before he races.
Okay, yeah.
And he said, I just wouldn't entertain fish and chips before a race.
No, so personally I go for like 36 boiled eggs.
Yeah, you see, we're all different. I go for a slice of pizza or two.
Okay. You kind of touched on it there. If we started tapering, that's probably a good place.
It's also
kind of banking on the fact that you've done some training before now. Otherwise, it's going to be a long half.
Or a long marathon. And I think tapering also depends on how much you've done. When your last planned long run was, if you're following a plan, wherever it's from. And also kind of what that training block looks like. So for example, you may find, shall we say, really fit bods for a marathon will probably only taper 2 to 3 weeks before. Whereas there could be general advice for, shall we say, less fit people, it might be a month before, but you just keep a consistency of training going. And I think that can also be heavily personalised. Half marathons, you're probably looking at a couple of weeks before for most people, and very fit people, it might be 7 to 10 days before you just start to ease back a little, particularly on intensity and things like that. What about you? If you're tapering for, say, a half marathon, what would you do?
Yeah, I'd probably drop the last long run from the Sunday a little bit, but kind of keep the week before about the same. I don't think you need to lose huge amounts of volume, and then depending on how you feel, probably an okay-ish session with volume and speed on the Tuesday, and then just really cut it back.
Okay.
And I quite like a last little, it's not really a session, just a leg turn of the day before, just to make sure everything's firing, keep it pretty easy. I try and keep the same number of runs, but just drop the volume a lot of the time, or the intensity, one of the two.
Or a bit of both.
Yeah, I personally quite like keeping running as much as I can before, so I feel better off that.
It's also a head game.
Yeah. And then just cutting it down a little bit. You want to feel as good as you can, but it's a balance of, if you come off the gas a little bit too much, you can then feel a bit lethargic, which I think the day before or 2 days before, it's nice to just have that little kick, just to be like, oh yeah, this feels good. Do something at race pace.
Yes.
And then maybe a little bit faster.
But you're talking meters as opposed to miles.
Oh yeah. Like for a 5k, I'd normally do a 400 and some twos, and exponentiate that a little bit, but then probably go no more than a k
for a half.
Yep. And maybe go 2 days before if it's a half, because it's not as fast, so you don't need the same.
Oh, so completely different to that.
Go on, what would you do?
I, as part of my taper, would 7 to 10 days before go have a massage, particularly the old quads, and I quite often keep the intensity going. So for example, if I was doing an interval session on the Tuesday, I'd probably do something like cut the volume back, but I would be cutting volume right the way down and I always found if I didn't, it was the impact, the pounding, everything just got a little bit tight again. And I might have another flush through massage sort of the Wednesday before the race, but the shooting and racing on a Saturday, I always like 2 days off.
Wow.
But I would always stretch, and I'd always say go for a walk. And again, it was just to keep off. It's a bit bigger, I don't know, the way I'm built, no idea. But I always used to find that was really, really good. Particularly the longer distances like 10 miles and half marathons. Can't really talk too much about 10Ks. I only ever did about 4. They just weren't around in my day. But we did lots of 5 milers, and there was a few 5Ks about. And again, for those, probably a day off. And again, I just found it worked. So we're all a bit different, really.
Yeah. Potentially shoes as well have made that a difference, because you're not getting as beaten up in shoes these days.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. Also, I didn't use the track so much, so a lot of my pace work would be on tarmac, either around local parks or where I was at the time. There was a country park with lakes and things that we used to belt round. So yeah, I think it just varies as well. I think we're all a bit different.
Yeah, so not very helpful now, but what works for you. But kind of keys are cut your volume a little bit.
Yeah.
Keep some intensity in there.
Yep. If you've been doing that, if not, just don't put it in the last minute.
Don't change too drastically, and then just make sure you're feeling good. A day off's not going to hurt.
No, I don't think it is. For an awful lot of people, it's not. If you're training 5 days a week, for example, don't suddenly think, I need to do more and go to 7 days, because actually it's probably going to have a negative effect.
Yeah.
And I think the other beauty of tapering is and it's not just advice. I think that everything that's out there, anecdotal, etc., you are better rolling up on the start line slightly undertrained than you are slightly overtrained.
Definitely.
And I think we've all seen the effect of that with ourselves and others around us. We're going, oh, there it is. Yeah, but yeah, and it's also with your races. Don't be afraid to potentially, as part of your taper, try something a little bit different, but don't go drastic. And if you're unsure of what works for you as a taper, actually, why not try it before your last long run?
Yeah.
And see how that works out.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, it's just working it through what works for you.
And
which has food's part of that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, what foodie things would you do? How far out would you start thinking about what you're eating?
Wow, well, I tell you what was a big thing in my day with marathons, and in some cases even people did it with halves, was a carbo load. But it was the way they did it, it was quite surprising. They literally would, 7 to 10 days before, cut out carbohydrate, so deplete the body, and then about the Tuesday, Wednesday before the race, would pile the carbohydrates back in under hopefully the promise that the body would then store more. So you would increase your stores. Good news is, for those that enjoy their food, science has kind of said that doesn't really work. So that approach, and I have actually heard someone talking about it on the podcast and just sort of sat there grimacing, as a thing to do, is really these days considered no need. So I think the general rule of thumb is it's finding a point where you actually increase your carbohydrate intakes, particularly things like potatoes, pastry starches, that type of thing, and vegetables and fruit would come into that. So you cut back a little on your protein and you increase the number of carbohydrates on your plate. Perhaps if it's a marathon or you're going to be running for a longer period of time in a half marathon, say 2 hours plus, there is an argument for actually increasing the number of carbohydrates you actually eat. My preference in advising people on that is to actually try an extra meal as opposed to trying to put more on your plate. Because let's be honest, there's still going to be a point where you feel full and bloated if you have a all-you-can-eat pasta dinner. So you're probably better off actually having a small bottle of pasta, say mid-afternoon, as part of your carbo load. When to start that? If you're racing Sunday, again, personal preference, but sometime around the Wednesday before. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then just go back to normal so you don't feel heavy and bloated. And the feeling that some people get, feeling a little bit lethargic on the start line, has been associated with the fact that actually there is a bit more energy storage through the body, and that just makes you feel a little bit sort of like lethargic, really, is the best way of putting it. And then when you actually start to run, you kind of go, what was that all about? It's a bit like your nerves before a race.
Yeah.
Within a minute of running, you go, that's all gone, thank goodness. And you're just getting on with what you're doing. Others, I know, will start a little bit later. I always did. I always found if I just sort of like a little bit Thursday, definitely Friday, definitely Saturday, that was enough. No race on Sunday.
Yeah.
And don't go mad on Sunday morning, personally. What about you? You eat like a horse anyway.
Yeah, I eat quite a lot.
Yeah.
So I
just do lots of little meals.
Try and make sure that I'm eating pretty healthy.
Relatively.
Yeah. So nothing too oily or fatty, just because you feel a little bit better in the week before. And then kind of if it's a Sunday race, I'd eat a little bit more from the Friday. It's maybe not the healthiest, but I'd have a lot of the same meals, and I'd cut out a lot of extra starch and fibre. So I probably on the Saturday night wouldn't have a lot of veg and just stick to carbs and proteins, because then you've got less in your gut in theory. As to how repeatable that is, and for other people I don't know, but for me it just seems to work. And then I'd have a big meal on the Saturday lunchtime and the Saturday night, and then just a little thing before we start. I say little, I'd probably still have 2 bagels. But I eat quite a lot, so.
But it's also relative to the exercise and everything else you're doing, isn't it?
And then I'd also cut down quite drastically on the caffeine that I'd had in the couple of days leading up to it, just so you make sure you're sleeping as well as you can and you get more of a hit before. But again, there's not lots to back that up, it's more just how I feel.
Sleep is super important, and I think the night before a race, if you have perhaps not the best night because of excitement, or it could be nerves, a bit of both, actually I don't think it's too much of a worry. And I think we've all been there just in a normal week, and then we've kind of next day think, well, actually I've really bad night's sleep, struggle waking up, but actually I've had an okay day, and then it's the day after you feel dreadful, despite perhaps having an intervening night's been good. But I think certainly for me the week before, it's just relaxing if nothing else, and making sure that you are off your feet a little bit. Certainly the Saturday, get off your feet. I mean, if you've got a big race, we never see you on the Saturday, you're somewhere else, and I think that's the right way to do it. Get off your feet, chill, relax, and just mentally prepare yourself for the race as well, which is another consideration that I don't think a lot of people look at, but that is part of the process of preparing. For me, sleep, really important.
It comes back to feeling good. If you feel good, you can race better, run better, whatever
absolutely. You want. And it's also just letting the body repair, and that's part of the tapering, is just to get rid of that training, if you like, residue, that training and repair as well. So there's a lot can be gained, because the scientists have also shown that the correct taper, and the rest is the best taper from a lactate response point of view. So your lactate response will actually improve if you stop training. I think a guy called Costa did the research about a week before. Can't see you doing that, you'd go mad.
When was that research done?
I can't remember, I think it was in the 70s.
I think that might have changed since.
Yeah, it might have done. I've got it upstairs.
I think there's a new study been done on keeping as much volume as you can into it.
I've seen that as well.
So,
but again, I bet it will come down to what works for the individual. Bet you.
And training type. Because if it was done in the 70s, it was probably based on a higher, more intensity in training.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, hey, look at what you respond to in training compared to Chris Jones. It's different. But the principle's the same.
So then, if we move to planning your day, kind of start line from waking up.
Have it pre-planned.
So I just use the notes on my phone, and if you use start time as a guide, and you know you want to start your warm-up half an hour before, you say the start's at 9, you need to start warming up by 8:30. That means you need to leave home at 8. That means your last meal needs to be at 7:30. Just do it on your phone. It takes 2 seconds to plan it out. Give yourself an extra 5 minutes everywhere, just because it's going to be busy in town or wherever you're going.
If you don't like a phone, do it on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But yeah, plan backwards. And assume the worst and hope for the best is a good saying for this. Yeah. If you arrive and it happens to be half an hour early,
grab a seat somewhere.
Or kick back in your car and shut your eyes for half an hour.
Oh, the amount of coffee I've drunk by then, there's no way I'm closing my eyes.
Yeah, hyper. But it could do.
Yeah, could do. I always try and eat at least 2 hours before, just so it's properly digested, and I use 2 hours before I start my warm-up, because that's when you're going to start running.
Agreed.
So that might even be 2.5, 3 hours before you race.
But that's when sports drinks can kick in.
Yeah.
And you use a good quality sports drink, Talk, High Five, for example, and you're just sipping that through that period, etc. And some people may find actually a little light snack, so there's just a little something in the stomach can work quite well. I find these days, because I'm not going flat out, I can do that. When I was racing, not a chance.
Yeah.
Not a chance, it would just feel dreadful. Some people don't like the idea of using sports drinks, and I would say that's okay. Try orange juice and water mixed together 50-50. Literally a tiny, tiny pinch of table salt, and try that. And you may just find that for an awful lot of people is absolutely bob on. Or apple juice, might be a bit acidic, but you could try it. I know someone does that with pineapple juice, and I think it's amazing.
There's lots of fancy carb drinks out there. They're essentially all the same thing.
Yeah.
Not to burst anyone's bubble.
I think you just need a nice balanced one that's actually been, if it's in a packet that's been produced by people that know what they're doing, as opposed to, shall we say, supermarket stuff as a rule.
Yeah.
Not exclusive.
And then there might be a bag drop, but if you're getting to the start line a little bit before, just because of when the corrals are, take an old t-shirt you don't mind throwing away.
Yeah, and some races actually used to collect the t-shirts and either give them to homeless charities, or they would make sure the t-shirts were recycled in some way.
I think a few places still do that. I don't know about Sheffield, but London certainly does.
Yes, I think I've got a feeling Sheffield does, but I could be wrong. It would make sense that they do, with it being in the centre location.
Yeah. But yeah, just something you don't mind chucking off. So a thin t-shirt is a good guide.
Or if it's chilly, even just a long sleeve. And if it's a bit drizzly, and you've got to go to a pen. So London Marathon would be a classic for this, because of the time you have to get into your area. Yes, the bin bag with the arms cut out works wonders. I've done that a few times.
Yeah.
Bin bags everywhere. Not good, but hey, better than freezing to death.
Yeah.
And of course, this year, weather-wise, it could go either way.
Yeah,
it could be absolutely scorchio, or it could be absolutely freezing.
Absolutely. I mean, cold is easy to adapt to. Just put on an extra layer. If it's really warm, to slow it down. There's a very good calculator on the VDOT site, which you can put in a temperature guide, and it'll say if you're running this speed before, you'll probably be about there.
Yeah.
It's not perfect for everyone, and it only works if you've got a rough idea of what you're going to run, but it's a bit of a guide.
The other way is just to use your heart rate.
Yeah.
Because you've only got so much heart rate that you can racing. So if your body's happy to keep you cool, you need heart rate to push the blood to the surface of your skin. So actually, if you think your normal, say, half marathon heart rate, you guys all know your numbers, what that looks like, then actually don't break that number too early, and just take effective measures to try and keep yourself cool. And that would, for me, would include simple things like do your warm up as much as you can in the shade, stay out the sun as much as possible if it's sunny, and actually keep yourself as cool as you can. So it could be actually you have a cold shower before you leave, or you have, dare I say, the aircon in the car on more, so you actually are a little bit chilly when you arrive, and then you just warm up because the environment's so much hotter, but your starting point, your body temperature's lower, as opposed to being there. So as your body heats up, you've got a greater range to fit.
Yeah, and simple things like if you get some water, drink it, put some on your head. There's
lots of ifs and buts with putting water on your head as well, because it stops the natural process of the evaporation, because there's too much water, you've got to heat the water up.
Yeah, if you're that hot, it's going to go pretty quick.
Yeah, it is.
There's not huge amounts. There's some research behind a hat that it only helps if it's wet, and if you're sweating into it, it's then going to dehydrate you more. So it's, if you feel good wearing it, do, but it's not the be all and end all.
If you get a big meshy hat, I think.
Yeah, or got holes in it.
Yeah, I can't think of a brand that does big meshy hats. Can you?
No, that folds up when you don't wear it.
Oh yeah, the ones that you can fold up and put in your pocket like Patagonia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just on the start line, it's normal to be nervous. Don't stress about it.
Yeah, I think this comes back to stuff you can be doing as part of your taper. So this is coming off the timeline and jumping back. This is also going through your head and with your written plan for the day. He's actually almost imagining what that looks like, and also anticipating things like, oh, I'm going to go to the loo, don't forget your loo paper just in case they haven't got any. You might want some hand sanitizer. It's things like that which you can just keep in your bag, but expect cues.
Yeah.
So actually you don't get fretty or phased by the fact that you're suddenly in the queue and you've got stuff to do. Well, yes, you've got stuff to do, you know what I mean?
You've planned for it.
But you've kind of, it's not a surprise. And you've built that then into your timeline, so you can just go through in your head what's happening. And then this would also apply to the same process during your race. So imagine yourself at the start line, imagine yourself starting, imagine how that should feel. And that can also even help you if there is a change of conditions, or you've come and done a race late and you haven't looked at the course, you go, oh, surprise, hill.
Yeah. Sheffield has hills.
Really? Yeah, there's one noticeable one at the beginning of it. Two.
There's two. Everyone forgets about the one out the door.
Yes, the one, a little one, compared to the big one.
But yeah, it's normal to have butterflies. You've just got to make them fly in formation. It's a good way of...
Yeah.
I quite like that.
And something I used to do, and I know a couple of people that quite liked, was to actually write down some of the negative stuff that might be going through the head on a piece of paper, and then on a second piece of paper write all the opposite to that. So I don't know whether I can complete the distance. I have trained for this. I know I can do the distance. For example, I don't like heat, and it's going to be hot. I will slow my running down to accommodate the heat. And then literally take the negative list, screw it up, put it in the bin, and stay focused on the positive list. And you could just almost use that as a little bit of a mantra, just to keep reminding you of the stuff that you can do, which comes back to control the controllables. So you can start to look after your head a little bit with the stuff that you're fearful of, but actually there's a positive outcome to that.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Being injured, haven't trained enough, the positive to that is I will slow down and enjoy today's race. Yeah, allowing for my current fitness level. That is okay to do. You don't have to be going for a PB every time you race.
Yeah. I think it's also, when you visualise it, it's going to hurt at some point.
Visualise it hurting?
Yeah, visualise it hurting. If you're hurting, everyone else probably is. So...
And imagine yourself pushing through that or keeping going through that, and actually how you're going to feel when you cross the finish line might be pretty rough, but actually it's only for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And then you feel great. Well, you start to feel better.
Yeah.
Then you feel great. And then after time, I'm never doing that again. Of course, you've signed up for next year.
Yeah. And then last couple of bits, nutrition during. I think a half's right on the edge of whether you need something.
I think it depends how long you're going to be out there.
Yeah.
And I also think it depends on what you do in training.
Yeah.
So if there are those people that have been using nutrition in training, yes. I think if you're going to be out there for, let's say, more than an hour and a half, I think actually there's an argument for it.
Definitely.
And again, that's okay. I think if you're out there for about an hour, you might need a little bit, but you're probably not going to need that much.
Yeah.
And again, it's very personal. When I used to race half marathons, I was looking at about an hour and 20 and a bit, and it was always water. Quite happy with that. I can remember when sports drinks came along. Going to a race, first time we ever had a sports drink, and the bloke chucked it all over himself. It was a right sticky mess at the end.
Yeah, not the one.
And it was like one of those moments where it was about 3 of us, don't do that! Too late, he chucked it all over himself.
Best friend.
It was a good old dose of high five, and then made it a bit strong. It was super sticky.
Yeah.
And he literally was, his hair was just, he was just a sticky mess at the end, and it was a hot day too. So yeah, we doused him down at the end of the race because we didn't want him to become a wasp frenzy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's again personal. Guide to water though, if it's a little bit warmer, take it small amounts often before you get thirsty.
Yeah.
Don't think it's hot, I need a whole cupful. If you need a whole cupful, you probably need next time take a step back and actually have a look at your hydration process going into the event.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't forget folks, if you're having more carbohydrate, you will need more water to absorb that. People take gels, regardless of whether they say it as isotonic. In my opinion, you're putting more carbohydrates in, make sure you take that gel at a water station with water. It helps your absorption, otherwise you start taking water out of your body or out of your main system to actually digest and put it into your stomach. That's no use.
Yeah, and don't stress when you're a bit dehydrated at the finish.
Normal.
You're going to run a half, you're going to sweat, you can't physically put enough in, but just make sure you keep drinking afterwards.
Yes.
So
all the top runners finish dehydrated. There's again research done on that, and there's, as long as it's not obviously to the point it's getting that you just feel like you need to drink a bath of water. Actually, it's perfectly normal and it doesn't affect performance that much. But you're only talking probably from a body point of view 1-2% loss of water. Any more than that, you start to your body starts to actually say, "Give me water now."
Yeah.
So finishing slightly deep. I think those figures are right. But the key is don't drink too much and don't go the other way either. Little and often.
Yeah.
And as early as possible as well. If people taking gels, as a rule, I would say for most people around 8 miles or around an hour for the first one.
Yeah.
And then if they're looking to keep that topped up, particularly marathon, every 20 minutes maybe.
Yeah, I think it comes back to trying your long runs, see what works.
And actually there's some people who just neck the whole gel straight in. There are others that swear by the fact actually a couple of mouthfuls, give it half a mile, then finish it off.
Yeah.
So actually they kind of spread the loading, which would, again, nothing wrong with that. It's what works.
Yeah.
Never did like gels personally.
No, I'd much rather have a sports drink.
Yeah.
It's just easier to take as well.
It's also, even the isotonics, it's still quite gloopy in your mouth, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do know somebody that made a sports drink. They would actually squeeze a couple of gels into a bottle, and that was their sports drink.
Yeah, I know Chris has done that a few times, and it's easy. It's just you don't have much idea how much you're taking. Yeah,
it works.
And then finally, don't forget to celebrate. You've worked hard. Enjoy it.
Woohoo!
So yeah,
give yourself a pat on the back, whatever happens. And if you're sitting there a little bit disappointed, I think. It's a perfect normal natural reaction, don't worry about it. Sometimes harder. But actually, first of all, just look back at what has gone right. And if it hasn't gone as well as you would like, we've all been there. And we've all had a stampy foot moment, haven't we, Harvey?
Which is fine, that's normal.
We've gone off on our own for 10 minutes and then come back and actually realise that you start thinking it through and you have a process that says, actually there's a lot of positives in that. The stuff I've learned.
Yeah.
And just because it went wrong isn't a bad thing, because you can actually say, I know what not to do, or I know there's an area that actually I need to think about for the next one and look to solving this. That's an opportunity, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to be disappointed. If it's not gone quite how you wanted, that's all right.
Yeah, it is, and it does happen. And sometimes you got to also look at it and go, well, it's my first race, or it's a building race, or actually I'm using this to see what shape I'm in.
Yeah.
That's okay. And I think sometimes we see it with customers a lot, don't we? I'm looking, not competitive, but I want a PB. So you are competitive, but it's that I'm looking for PB, I'm looking for PB, I'm looking for why. Yeah. See what happens. Bodies are fickle. All you can ever do is your best.
Yeah.
And that is that. And sometimes that has to be just, good enough.
Yeah.
Even if our head says not good enough, actually it is, because you couldn't have done any more on the day. Just the way it was, something just threw you out, and that's all right.
And have fun.
Yes, I always used to enjoy racing. You haven't done many half marathons. Have you got a favourite one?
I can't say I've done enough to have a favourite. So Stu, what's your favourite half?
We just had to cut there, and Harvey's been what he is. Anyway, would you believe I always enjoyed the Great North Run? But it was in the day pre-lottery or anything like that. You just entered and you got in, and there was probably only about 7,000 people did it. And one of my favourite years is we did it. We kind of come off a bit of a training block, and we wanted to go. We went up with a club to do it, and there was about 4 or 5 of us, and we decided that we would do a Chariots of Fire event. Obviously, the Olympic flame and running with it. We couldn't do that. So every time we got to an ice cream van, we bought ice creams, because it was pretty hot that year, and we went round holding up ice creams and then eating the ice creams. I think we had about 4 or something. It was a whole bunch of us. And we were pretty fit in those days. We still broke 130. We were very happy.
The dairy hits you hard.
Sorry?
The dairy hits you so hard.
Yeah, it was like...
You painted the Portaloos white.
Wasn't that bad. There was a lot of drippy ice cream down the wrists and up arms. I can remember that much. And I can remember, I think towards the end we were just giving the ice creams away. But that's what we did.
Yeah.
We actually had a lot of fun. But yeah, I really used to enjoy the Sheffield half. Not the Sheffield half, the Great North Run. I enjoyed watching the Sheffield half because it was like people coming up that hill.
Yeah.
Some of the facial expressions are to die for.
Yeah, it's good, eh?
So,
are you going to be there this bit? Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah, we're going to go up to Ringing Lake, Debs and I. So we'll be cheering people on. There's an interesting one because of that hill. How would you pace that race?
Full send. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, okay. Trashed legs.
Yeah, probably not full send. Just get to the top feeling alright, because the downhill will take it out of you. If you can run that downhill faster, you can make so much time back versus maybe the max a minute you can gain going up.
It's like fell racing, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's that principle.
Just because you're first to the top doesn't mean you're going to get down quickest.
No, and it's always the first down the hill that wins. It's not the first up the hill.
Yeah.
And it's invariably the person who's first up the hill. If you've got similarly paced athletes and fit athletes, it's usually who can run the downhill quickest. I agree with that. Actually hold back on that first hill.
Yeah.
And you do want to be getting to the top of it thinking, actually, if it's, I would say a mile longer, you could have kept going.
And actually, apart from the part where it turns up an old lane, it's not too steep. Like
it's a nice runnable
It's
angle.
still very, mechanics, you can run up it properly.
Yeah.
Whereas apart from that little clip where it goes steeper, it's, as you come out from the trees, it's actually not too steep.
It's almost like a little kick, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
And then Sheep Hill just always goes on longer than you think, where you go left off it. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's just that down then, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's just making sure that, again, you start off with just a nice controlled weight and don't overstride coming downhill, because that just bashes you to bits. And I think eventually would probably take its toll when you come back towards the town and again you want that last little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just having enough all the time. It's just thinking it through. It's just a race that just needs a bit of thought. But for me, the big thing is don't charge up that first hill.
Yeah, I think the similar way you pace a flat one, just making sure you're nice and within yourself to start with, and then.
Well, in theory, it's going to feel the same if you think how it's going to feel. And then you go for that. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? Because these day and age, you've got people race off heart rate, GPS, etc. Back in my day, we had a Timex watch that gave us splits if we were lucky, and everything we did was off feel. We just knew what a half marathon would feel like. We knew what 10k would feel like, a 5 miler. Well, actually, I never did know what a 10k felt like, but I knew what a 5 miler would feel like. And I knew what a 10 miler and a half marathon would feel like, and you would just go with that feel.
Yeah.
And I do think with the advent of watches, we've lost that a little bit.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument to run without your watch sometimes. I think it's good to race without it because you get a lot more feel of the race. It's just, it's actually having the balls to take it off the first time.
Yes, it is. And I don't see a reason why people can't do that and just give it a go.
Yeah.
Because we sometimes do it. You just say in training, don't just run, see what happens.
Yeah.
And you still set heart rate monitor straps up to actually record the information.
Yeah.
Later.
A good benefit to not having it on sometimes. So yeah. But anyway, I think to summarise, taper, you're going to have to cut some volume at some amount of intensity.
Yes.
As to what that is, it could be 3 days, it could be 2 weeks.
2 days off.
Guide. Yeah.
That's what I do.
Take some time off. Eat a little bit more before it. Focus on some carbs.
Yeah.
Plan your arrival time and work back from the start.
Plan for the worst.
Plan for the worst.
Hope for the best.
Take a spare layer with you. Have what you're going to eat set out and what you're going to eat in the race.
Well, that's the other thing as well. You could be leaving home with bright sunshine or absolutely chucking it down.
Yeah.
You arrive at the race, it's chucking it down and you didn't bring kit for it. Or you arrive at the race and actually the clouds are cleared and it's boiling hot. So you've got to kind of think of all of that.
Yeah.
And don't forget your suntan lotion.
And then don't go off too fast and enjoy it.
Yes. Everybody know what a negative split is?
No.
Oh, you don't know what a negative split is? Oh, Harvey.
Oh, I had a lovely negative split on my session yesterday.
Yeah, I saw. But look.
It's good.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, enjoy. Good luck to everyone. It's good fun. Make the most of it. Wave to Stuart the hill.
Yeah. Have fun, folks. Good luck.
Nice one. If we've forgotten anything, pop it in the comments down below. Cheers.